I moved into the old house on Maple Lane in late October. House number 17, an 1890s Victorian with creaking floorboards, fogged windows, and one unused fireplace in the living room. I expected quiet solitude, cheap rent, and space to rebuild after my divorce. I had wanted isolation somewhere peaceful. Instead, I got cold air under the door and laughter began on the third night. I heard it just after midnight. I woke to faint crackling as though flames ran through the unused chimney. I listened lying. Still heart pounding, there was no fire, no pilot light, only the hush of night, and the faintest sound of laughter, a child's giggle, echoing up through the hearth. I sat up listening, but no ember, no warmth, no light, just the wallpaper kite pattern glowing pale under moonbeams. I told myself it was nothing, a trick from an old house, settling nerves, but the sound felt too specific. High-pitched, innocent, then sharp pause, then hiss of air moving, as if drawn upward chimney stack. I pressed ear to cold mantle. Edgewood grain chilled. I felt breath on my forehead, but no one was there over the next days. I searched local archives for previous occupants, learned the house had burned on the top floor in 1923, a small fire in nursery. Children rescued, no fatalities, but a single boy named Thomas had vanished before firefighters arrived. His body never found. Many believed he wandered in a chimney void and got lost in walls. I found a single newspaper clipping about the fire decades later. Reporters speculated he died in ventilation shafts, house divided by hidden passages, service tunnels, now sealed that night. I set up audio recorder inside hearth facing up into ash pit, empty and cold. I pressed record, and at 2:17 a.m. the capture. Pinged the same laughter, echo low, at first then louder, and suddenly crackle, of which shiver, then laughter again. Child giggle, looping twice recorded audio file, ends abruptly mid-laugh, timestamp corrupted to 1901 on playback. I shivered and deleted it. I began sleeping on couch in living room with every light on, but I heard the laughter again, drifting from hearth around 3:12 a.m. People often ask why I didn't leave immediately, but nothing about this felt like prank or rational haunting. It felt personal, as if someone needed to be remembered the next morning. I found ash inside fireplace, arranged in a letters across, great L-U-G-H, broken and half buried in fine gray dust. I stared, mouth dry, took photo, but the pattern was gone by afternoon, only blank ash left untouched. Then TCH tapping under floorboards like knocks echoing beneath hearth. I had electrician friend check house wiring. No outlets behind hearth, none active, no electric current to draw static. He said must be rodents or settling joints, but he refused to walk into basement beneath hearth alone. Turned pale when I described laughter at night. I felt presence there. When reading on couch, I would glance at fireplace and edge of vision would flicker shadow inside that void. When laughter paused, I felt shift in darkness like weight moving against bricks. I installed motion camera hidden inside hearth facing back of fireplace and ran thermal camera attached phone at 3 a.m. Next morning, I woke to alert motion detection video. File half black, half static. Next, I saw frame with shape pressed to inner brick arch outline of boy's head and shoulders, silhouette dark, but defined between great bars, arms raised, as if pushing outward. Then video. Jumps again, timestamp reversed to 01/01/1901. 3:13 a.m. File corrupted, cannot export. That image alone shrank sleep from my eyes. I panicked, opened email app. To text friend, I saw phrase typed by someone else on draft. Keyboard, I see you under gravel, typed not by me. Then phone auto-locked, and when I unlocked, I found phone battery down to 3%. Even though fully charged before sleep, I couldn't bear fireplace at night. I burned candles across room, but the flicker of flames brought no comfort. Instead, I noticed odd reflection in the glossy lens burnished surface of glass jar. The reflection shifted in rhythm with laughter pattern I'd heard earlier, then dimmed, then flickered off. Screen I started collecting. Everything I saw and heard in journal scribbled times 2/17/3/12/30 3 3 13 constant circle, each pattern shifting 1 minute earlier each night, but always the same window. Dawn fear. One morning I woke to find small footprints in ash on hearth floor dust. Tiny bare feet prints leading up chimney grate, then turned back into empty hearth. No visible footprints outside. Once I swept them, they reappeared next day. Same pattern. I told no one beyond half warning to friend Emma. She visited once and stayed 1 hour. She refused to stay second night. She said saw a shape inside fireplace, too clearly defined to dismiss, and heard whisper calling her name inside bricks. She left shaken, and I haven't been able to reach her since, so I record again each night's set. Lights, phones, cams, tripods, candles, hearth rigged under dry detection. The first full nights, I remain calm. I fall 3:12 awake to no sound, then at 3:13 instant full laughter from hearth, doubling heartbeat in throat, and mirror visible gloom shape pressing through ash cascade down great crack wall. Titanium dust drift file, corrupted again, timestamp death January 1st 0. I stopped leaving delay edit logs. I hide sockets. I unplug breaker under hearth wiring circuit, but the laughter returns more often, creeping above 3:13 intervals 3:12:59, and again 3:13:01, and again 3:12:58 flicker, then long silence, then breath on my neck. When I sit writing by dining table across room from hearth, I keep telling myself small boy ghost playing need enclosure, but the laughter is panic, sometimes echoing panic rather than glee, overwhelming volume. Then cut it stops because someone listened. I can feel lighter air collapse over fireplace when I'm near, like empty lungs waiting, or someone exhaled in a cold brick. The house breathes there through me. I don't know what to do yet, but each night as bed calls I stay awake until first hint of giggle from hearth before dawn, and right times breathe, count seconds until laughter again, and each time file corrupt crash, reverse time stamp. I see the silhouette pressed against brick ribbed outline through gray bars. I see that head tilt, shoulder push. I see in dreams when I close eyes before I fall. The laughter has changed. It no longer sounds like a child, or at least not just a child. It still comes from the fireplace, yes, but it carries something new now. An undercurrent, a second tone barely hidden in the original, like another mouth speaking over the giggle. Lower, wetter, hungrier. I haven't slept in 2 days. I've tried everything, closing the flue, sealing the hearth with duct tape and a thick painter's tarp, even blocking the fireplace with an old dresser. The laughter passes through it all. It doesn't care what I do. IT finds a way out. Finds me. One night, around 3:14 a.m., I was staring at the fireplace from across the room, watching it in a kind of trance. My eyelids felt like they were stapled open. A whisper broke the silence. Not a giggle this time, but a word. A voice like dry leaves brushing against each other. Warmer. I stood up too fast and hit the coffee table. When I turned on the lights, nothing was there. But I could smell something, like hair burning, and under that, something worse. Sour, metallic, almost like rot. October 28th, I found a hidden room. I wasn't looking for it. I was following a low tapping noise that came from behind the walls, slow and deliberate. I pressed my ear against the hallway plaster near the fireplace, and the sound was clearer, on knuckle rhythm, always 3 knocks, pause, then 2, then 3 again. Tap, 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 tap. I marked the wall and came back the next morning with a hammer and flashlight. The wall felt hollow in a strange section where the old wallpaper peeled like dead skin. One good swing, and the plaster crumbled to reveal a narrow passageway behind it, dust-choked, lined with red bricks. The air was freezing. The flashlight flickered as soon as I stepped inside. At the end of that claustrophobic hall, barely shoulder width, I found a small room, maybe 4 feet by 6. Brick floor, brick walls, and in the far corner, a child-sized mattress, black with mildew. Beside it, a rusted tin lunchbox. Inside were 3 things: a stuffed animal rabbit with no eyes, a burned photograph of a boy, and a crumpled page torn from a book. The page had only 1 line legible: "And he shall laugh beneath the stone, where warmest breath is not his own." I took the page and the photo, left the rabbit. The next night, the laughter changed again. October 30th, the whispers are getting clearer. Now, they come before the laughter. Low voices that say half sentences, names, warnings I can't fully catch. Don't let it. He's still warm. Where are your bones, Thomas? Thomas, the missing boy from 1923. I found a diary entry from the mother, printed in a church archive downtown. Thomas keeps talking to the man in the wall. Says he lives in the flu. Says he tells jokes. Thomas says the man told him not to go to school anymore, that he should stay in the fireplace where it's fun and warm. The entry was dated 2 weeks before the fire. I looked up the floor plans again. Behind the fireplace, through that secret room, is a shaft that leads to a sealed section of the house, something that doesn't appear on the new plans. I think they walled it off after the fire. I think Thomas never left it. October 31st. Halloween the day was uneventful. Kids walked past the house. No one came to the door. I didn't decorate, and no one ever trick-or-treated here. But at exactly 3:13 a.m., the house went dead quiet. No wind, no pipes, not even the hum of the fridge. I looked at the fireplace. The tarp had torn. Someone had cut 3 vertical slashes into it. I swear, I hadn't moved out. I was standing across the room. That's when the lights flickered and the room dimmed unnaturally, as if the shadows themselves grew heavier, thicker. I heard a whisper, "Come closer." It's fun. The voice was a mockery of a child's, something trying to sound small. But it wasn't small that IT knew it wasn't. I ran that I left the house and didn't go back until morning. November 2nd, Emma is missing. She called me the night before, said she couldn't sleep, that she kept hearing knocking behind her closet, that something was breathing under her bed. She hadn't even stepped inside the house since that one visit. I told her to stay with friends. She said she would. She didn't show up for work the next day. Her phone goes straight to voicemail. Her apartment was found unlocked. No signs of struggle, except for ash scattered in a perfect circle in the center of the bedroom floor. And drawn into the ash, a crude, smiling face. November 3rd. I let it speak. I couldn't take the silence anymore. It felt like the fireplace was holding its breath, waiting for me to break. So I sat in front of it. I turned off the lights, and I whispered, "What do you want?" There was a pause, not a long one. Then the fireplace breathed out. A rush of cold air, and ash that smelled like charred wood, and something sickly sweet. Then laughter, louder than ever. rising in pitch, too many voices layered on top of each other. Children, adults, some sounding like they were drowning. And through all of it, one sentence rang out clear: "I want you to laugh too." The flames weren't real, but I saw them, dancing in the hearth, even though the fireplace was sealed. Fire that didn't burn, only illuminated. In the light, I saw them. So many hands, pressing against the inside of the bricks. November 4th, the marks. I woke up this morning with soot under my fingernails. I hadn't touched the fireplace. There are small handprints across my walls now, smudged in ash, too small to be mine. Some trail up toward the ceiling, some vanish into the floor. I recorded everything. I played back last night's audio. It's 30 seconds of silence. Then my own voice, speaking words I never said, whispering a nursery rhyme I've never heard. In the hearth where silence hides, in the bricks the boy still bides. Smile wide and never weep, or down the flue your soul he'll keep. I haven't left the house in 2 days. I don't think I can. I think it doesn't want me to. And worse, I'm starting to laugh when I hear it. Not because I want to, because it makes me. It's been 3 weeks since we moved into the house with a fireplace that no one ever used. 3 weeks of subtle dread. 3 weeks of soft sounds, flickers of movement, and dreams I couldn't quite remember, but always woke from drenched in sweat. I stopped trying to rationalize things after the 2nd week. Something was wrong with the fireplace, more specifically with whatever was inside it. And I was beginning to think it wasn't something. It was someone. We tried sealing it. A friend of mine, Kyle, helped me nail a wooden cover over the hearth, just plywood and screws. It wasn't elegant, but I thought maybe blocking it off would stop the laughter. Yes, laughter. I hadn't told anyone else I was hearing it, not even Sarah. But every night, around 3:13 a.m. exactly, a strange, muffled chuckle would rise from the hearth. Not playful laughter, not even sinister, just wrong. Like something was trying to mimic human emotion, but didn't understand how. The plywood didn't help. The laughter didn't get louder, but it became clearer, sharper, like the wood somehow filtered out the background noise and made the sound more focused. That was the first time I noticed the whispers. It started with one word, clear as day, just after 3 a.m. while I was in bed reading. Sarah was asleep beside me. The baby monitor showed our daughter breathing slowly in her crib. Then I heard it from the fireplace downstairs. One single word whispered across the air like breath over ice. Daniel. That's my name. I didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't think. The kind of stillness that only real fear brings. Daniel. It came again, a hiss, a coaxing murmur. Like someone trying to taste my name. I got up, stupid I know, but I needed to see. Needed to prove to myself that I was imagining it. The hallway was dark. I didn't want to turn on the lights. Some primal part of me believed that if I kept the world dim, whatever it was would stay half-dream. The living room was cold, much colder than the hallway, which was odd. I stood in front of the sealed hearth, just staring at it. The air smelled like wet ash. Then, knock. 1, 2, 3 soft knocks came from behind the plywood. I should have run, should have screamed, but I stood there transfixed. Daniel, it whispered again. I stepped closer, barely noticing that my foot had found the exact spot where the soot mark had once appeared. That's when the fireplace exhaled. Not literally, but I felt it. A warm breath of air, soft and sickly sweet, rushed from the seams around the wood. Like something on the other side had leaned forward and breathed into the room. I reeled back. My heart was pounding so hard I felt dizzy. And then, above me, I heard the most terrifying sound I've ever known. Sarah's voice screaming my name. I ran upstairs. She was in the nursery doorway, clutching the monitor, pale as snow. "Daniel, it's her," she choked out. On the monitor, I saw there was a woman standing over the crib. I grabbed the baby monitor from her. The image was normal, just our daughter asleep. But the temperature in the room had dropped to what felt like freezing. That's when we made the second worst decision of our lives. We called in a priest. He was young, too young that I think he'd just recently been ordained. Father Alton, that he didn't laugh when we told him everything, just listened, grave and careful. He agreed to bless the house and said he'd start with a fireplace. We stood back as he opened the plywood cover. I almost begged him not to, but I wanted this over. I needed someone else to see what we were experiencing. He took off the wood. Nothing, just the black, empty mouth of a fireplace. Dead and cold, and oh soot. No marks, no smell. Just stone and shadow. He knelt and began to pray. At first, nothing happened. Then the laughter came back, quiet but right at his ear. He paused, looked up at us. "Did either of you hear that?" he asked. We both nodded. Then something new happened, something I didn't think possible. The stone inside the fireplace shifted, slowly, like tectonic plates scraping against each other. A small circular hole opened in the back. It wasn't like a trapdoor or a vent. It was like the stone itself was melting inward. A dark, yawning tunnel had appeared, no wider than a melon, sloping back into pitch black. Father Alton muttered a prayer I didn't recognize and reached out toward the hole with his crucifix. Then everything went dead quiet. The house didn't creak. The air didn't move. The silence was so heavy I could hear the blood in my ears. And then, slap, a blackened hand shot from the hole and grabbed the crucifix. We all screamed. The priest stumbled back. The hand yanked the crucifix into the hole. Gone. He backed away, mouth trembling. His lips moved, but no words came. Then, from inside that hole, came a whisper in a different voice. Not one I'd heard before. A woman's voice. Not angry, not mocking. It begged, "Don't. Leave me here." The voice wasn't coming from a demon or some monster. It sounded broken, but then something else spoke behind it. Something deeper. Something that wasn't pretending to be human. "Leave the door open." We sealed it again, not with plywood this time, with concrete. I mixed it myself, laid it by hand, that I buried that hole in rock and prayer and salt. But that didn't stop the dreams. Sarah stopped sleeping. She began sketching. Over and over again, she drew a fireplace. Sometimes it was burning, sometimes it was cracked, but always behind it was the same figure. A woman, face covered in soot, mouth open in a scream, arms raised like she was trying to claw her way out. We found out who she was, or who we think she was. An old news article from the 60s. A woman named Margaret Neely went missing in this neighborhood. A teacher lived alone, never found. She lived in our house. And in that article, a photo, her fireplace, the same one, only it wasn't sealed back then. It was wide open, and someone had drawn on the bricks with charcoal. A single word scrawled in jagged lines, "Stay." After we found the article about Margaret Neely, everything began to unravel. Sarah was unraveling, that I don't mean that metaphorically. She was unraveling mentally, emotionally, piece by fragile piece. The sleepless nights, the sketches, the shadows she kept saying were moving wrong in the corners of the room. And then, one night, she turned to me and said something I still hear when the house is quiet. There's someone behind my eyes when I blink. She's watching me blink. I wanted to believe she was just sleep-deprived, hallucinating from stress, but I knew deep down she wasn't lying. She wasn't making anything up. The thing in the fireplace, we hadn't sealed it off. We trapped it, and now it was pressing outward. Sarah stopped drawing the fireplace. She started drawing a face. Always the same face, featureless, pale, mouth open wider than seemed possible, as if it were screaming without making a sound. And then came the crawling. Not rats, not bugs, just the sound of crawling. Slithering to as if fingers were dragging themselves across the insides of our walls. Slow and deliberate, starting from the fireplace and stretching outward. One night, we heard it reach the nursery. It was 2:59 a.m. I remember because I looked at the clock just as the baby monitor flickered to static. No sound, just white noise. Then a sharp knock came from the wall behind the crib. We both jumped out of bed and bolted for the nursery. I swear I felt something cold brush past me in the hallway, like walking through a hanging curtain made of mist. The nursery was silent, except our daughter was staring at the wall, not crying, not making a sound, just staring, unblinking. Her tiny hand was pointing at the corner of the room where the drywall met the baseboard. And on the wall, a crack had formed, thin but sharp, like the surface had been pushed from the inside. We took her out of that room that night, slept with her between us, but none of us truly slept. And then, 2 nights later, the concrete cracked. It happened at 3:13 a.m., of course. There was a loud bang, like a sledgehammer against the stone, and then a horrible, wheezing laugh. Not muffled this time, not distant. It was in the living room. I ran down, flashlight in hand, heart pounding so hard I couldn't feel my feet. The concrete was split, a jagged, blackened fracture right across the center of the sealed hearth. A foul stench hung in the air, decay, wet mold, burnt hair. The kind of scent you don't forget. The kind that coats your throat and settles in your stomach. And then, something moved. I saw it. A pale fingertip pushing slowly through the crack. Not like someone forcing their hand through. More like someone testing the air. I dropped the flashlight. By the time I picked it up, the finger was gone. But the crack remained. Wider. And something had scratched the floor just outside the hearth. A single word, carved into the wood. Open. I called Kyle again, the friend who helped me board up the fireplace weeks ago. I needed someone else to see what was happening. He came the next morning, but as soon as he stepped inside the living room, he stopped. Bro, he whispered, why the hell is your wall breathing? I turned. He was right. The wall above the hearth was pulsing. Ever so slightly, like something behind it was expanding and contracting like lungs. Like it was alive. We backed away. Kyle wanted to leave, but I begged him to help me figure out if there was a second chamber behind the fireplace, or a hidden crawl space or vent. Anything that could explain what was happening. We ripped away the drywall above the mantel and found brick. Old, black brick covered in soot. But in the center, written in something red, too dark to be paint, was the same word we'd seen in the photo of Margaret's fireplace. Stay. Not once. Dozens of times. Scratched, written, carved over and over, like someone had tried to write it as many times as possible before they were dragged away. Some of the writing was even upside down, as if someone had been clinging to the ceiling. Writing, we stopped the demolition there. That night, I sat in the living room with my phone camera pointed at the hearth, set to record. I don't know what I hoped to catch. Maybe I just needed proof. When I reviewed the footage the next morning, everything looked still. Until the 3:13 mark. That's when the footage froze for exactly 7 seconds. No distortion, no visual glitches. Just frozen. Even the time code stopped. And when it resumed, the camera had moved. It was now angled slightly higher, pointing toward the brick wall above the hearth. And something was now sitting on the couch in the reflection of the window. I was asleep upstairs when this happened. The figure was faint, pale, head cocked, its arms too long, stretching down past its knees. Sitting there, watching, we fled the house the next day. But even in the motel, the dreams didn't stop. Sarah dreamt of being bricked into a wall. I dreamt of fire, not burning me, burning under me, as if I was standing over a furnace too large to ever extinguish. Our daughter, she started laughing in her sleep. That same laugh, high-pitched, sharp, mimicking joy. Only wrong. Just like the laughter that started it all. Just like what still echoes through the fireplace. That we sealed. That cracked. That is now starting to open. We should have left the house for good. Burned it down. Forgotten the address, the street, the city. But curiosity is its own sickness. And I was terminal. So we went back. It was a stupid decision, but it felt necessary. Something about that place had embedded itself in us. And I didn't just mean emotionally. I meant physically. Sarah had started bleeding from her gums. Our daughter had developed bruises along her spine, shaped like fingers. And I started waking up with soot under my fingernails. Even in the hotel. Even after leaving. The house, or whatever was in it, was inside us now, and there was only one way to stop it, to finish opening what it wanted us to. It was dusk when we unlocked the door. The air was thick, not stale, not musty, but heavy, like something was breathing alongside us. We brought flashlights, crowbars, and Kyle. He didn't want to come back, but he hadn't slept since the night he visited. And when I told him about the camera footage, about the figure in the window's reflection, he just muttered, "That thing was in my dreams. I saw it sitting on your couch, but I didn't tell you." The floorboards creaked in ways they never had before. It was like the house knew. The fireplace was waiting. The crack had widened, and from inside, we could now hear something moving. It wasn't loud, that IT wasn't even aggressive, just scraping, as if nails were dragging along brick. Slowly, rhythmically, like something pacing behind the wall. We decided to break open the rest of the hearth. We took turns hammering, crowbar prying, watching as the thick soot-covered bricks tumbled out like rotten teeth. Then we hit something that made all of us stop breathing. A metal grate, ancient, warped, bolted into the stone. It covered a hollow chamber. Kyle pulled back a few more bricks while I shined the flashlight inside. There was something in there. A mirror, small handheld, oval, resting on a pile of ash and blackened cloth. I reached for it, and as my fingers closed around the cold, soot-covered frame, I saw her, in the mirror, standing behind me. Face long, skin paper white and too tight. Eyes like cracks in porcelain. A mouth open, so wide I thought the glass might break from the pressure. She wasn't a reflection. She was in glass. I dropped it and staggered back. The mirror didn't shatter. IT landed in the ash with a dull thump. But from the moment I touched it, I could hear something else. Laughter. Not just from the fireplace anymore. Now it was in the walls, the ceiling, the floor. It was surrounding us. Behind the chamber, behind the bricks, was something we hadn't expected. Another room. It wasn't listed in the house plans. We'd lived here for over a year and never suspected it. The metal grate, once pried loose, opened into a crawl space that sloped downward. The walls were black with soot, but further in, they turned red. Not painted. Stained. We crawled in, me first, then Kyle. Sarah stayed outside with our daughter, cradling her tightly. The passage led to a sealed wooden door buried inside the foundation. No handle, just scratches, deep, angry gouges carved into the wood from the inside. I raised the flashlight and saw the words. I tried to stay. She won't let me leave below it. A faint handprint, a child's. We didn't knock, we just pushed. The door gave way with a loud groan. The chamber inside wasn't large. It was circular, no more than 8 feet wide. And in the center of the room was a fireplace. Another one, but this one had no chimney, no hearth, just a black void. A gaping, yawning hole ringed with teeth like bricks. Something was waiting inside. I don't know how to describe what happened next. It didn't emerge. It didn't speak. It simply appeared. The blackness in the center of the fireplace grew deeper, richer. Not a shadow, not an absence of light, something worse. Like the opposite of seeing. And then came the face. Or was something like a face. It shifted constantly, like wax melting and reforming. Sometimes it was Margaret's face. Sometimes it was Sarah's. Once, it was mine, and it smiled, with teeth like keys, jagged, metallic, clicking softly in the rhythm of laughter. It didn't need to talk, didn't need to move, because I could feel it inside my skull. Whispering thoughts that weren't words, memories that weren't mine, pain that felt ancient. You opened it. It seemed to say, now I can live again. I tried to move, but my legs weren't working. Kyle screamed, but the sound died before it left his throat. I turned to look at him. His eyes were black, pitch dark, bleeding down his cheeks. And the thing, it started to pull. It reached out, not physically, but through the cracks, in the walls, in our minds. I felt something inside me tear. Not skin, something deeper, like a split in my perception. Suddenly, I could see everything at once. All the faces it had worn. All the people who'd tried to seal it. Burn it, forget it. Margaret Neely. The families before her. A priest who tried to exorcise it and ended up burning himself alive in the hearth. And the house was its mouth. The fireplace was its throat. And the laughter? That was the sound of its swallowing. We barely got out. Carl didn't make it, but he collapsed in the crawl space, face pale, unmoving. I dragged Sarah and our daughter out of the house, screaming. The laughter followed us. We heard it through the trees as we ran to the street. We heard it in the wind that blew across the empty yard. We heard it in the baby's lullaby toy when it played on its own in the motel that night. And now we're back in our apartment, far away. But last night I smelled smoke. And when I checked the wall behind our TV, there's a crack. And inside, I can hear scraping. It's been weeks since we escaped the house, if you can even call it escaping. Kyle is gone, officially missing, but we know better. Whatever we brought out of that crawl space, it didn't stop at the threshold. It followed. We moved cities, changed our names, switched phones, bank accounts, burned every photo, every map, every document tied to that place. but you can't outrun something that wears your voice in the dark. Last night, my daughter said a word she's never spoken before. Margaret. She whispered it in her sleep. Soft, gentle, like a prayer she didn't know she was saying. Sarah looked at me, her face hollow. We didn't tell her that name. Not once. We try to live normal lives. But normal doesn't exist anymore. I see her in mirrors. I hear her humming in the pipes. Our smoke alarms go off without cause. Always at 3:14 a.m. Always followed by laughter. And the fireplace. The new one in this apartment? It started cracking along the seams, just like the old one. At first it was harmless. Then, soot appeared. Then footprints. Small, bare, ashy, leading away from the hearth. Then they stopped by our daughter's bed. I thought it couldn't get worse, that we'd hit rock bottom, until the night I found Margaret Neely's face pressed against our living room window. Not the ghostly, twisted version I saw in the mirror. Her younger face, alive, whole, and smiling. She didn't knock. She just stood there, mouth moving in silence, her breath not fogging the glass. I opened the door like a fool. She wasn't outside, but there were footsteps in the carpet, damp and soot-stained. Walking inward, we never heard the door open again. But it doesn't matter now. Sarah began having visions. Of fire, but not destructive, not hot. Hungry. She told me it kept showing her a room of faces, faces trapped in soot like fossils. Screaming, ageless, but aware. It's collecting us, she said. It's building a body out of memories. It only needs one more. We stopped sleeping. Our daughter started talking to things in the corner. One night, I heard her say, she says I'm warm. She says I'll keep the fire alive. I ran in, and there she was, Margaret, sitting cross-legged on the floor beside our child, gently stroking her hair. I grabbed my daughter, but my arms passed through her. Like smoke, like illusion. She turned to me with eyes that were fireplaces themselves, burning from the inside out, and whispered, "Your family is already lit, you just haven't seen the flame yet." I made a choice. To go back, to the house, to the thing in the wall. Not to destroy it, I knew by now that was impossible, but to make a deal. Maybe it wanted me. Maybe it needed something I hadn't given. Or maybe it just liked watching us break. I left a note for Sarah and took nothing but a flashlight and the mirror from the crawl space, which I had foolishly brought with us. The house was waiting, open, not locked, not dusty, still warm, like breath. The crawl space was bigger now. The fireplace inside it now beat like a heart. Slow, steady, echoing through the walls. The fire wasn't visible, but the light flickered anyway. I stood before it in protection. No prayers. And I spoke. Take me. Leave them alone. Nothing answered, but I could feel it smiling. Not a reward, not mercy, just approval. They found me 2 days later, outside in the yard. Clothes soaked in ash, face burned, eyes wide open but blind. I couldn't speak. All I did was laugh. Constantly. Nurses said they had to sedate me 4 times before I stopped. They thought I'd gone insane. But that's not what happened. I wasn't there anymore. The real me, the one that loved Sarah, that held our daughter's hand, he's in the fireplace now, watching, waiting. Sarah still writes to me. Sometimes she sends drawings our daughter makes. I don't respond, because I'm no longer the one reading them. But I do watch, through cracks in mirrors, through curling smoke, through fireplaces that haven't been used in years. And when I hear laughter echo from an unused chimney, I know someone new is about to join us. Because once the fire knows your name, it never forgets.